All right, let's step back in time. We are heading into a beautifully warm, bright San Diego in August of 1917. In today's explainer, we're going to unpack a really specific, grounded story about a young guy named Lyle who is getting ready for his girlfriend Emily's 18th birthday. Now, on the surface, sure, it just looks like a simple story about buying a dress. But as you'll see, it's actually this profound look at how we, as human beings, manage to find our footing when the entire world around us is practically turning upside down. Okay, let's dive right into this. You have to remember the context here. At this exact moment in history, the globe is completely consumed by World War I. Lyle himself is in uniform. He's working these long shifts at the military exchange, and his entire life is dictated by a ticking clock on his Liberty passes. It's an era of just massive, sweeping, global anxiety. So how do you find any sense of normalcy in times like that? Well, the answer we're exploring today lies in the unsung value of ordinary family moments. It's those quiet routines, those familial orbits, that end up providing a crucial anchor when literally everything else feels uncertain. Section 1. A birthday during wartime. What we're looking at here is a truly fascinating juxtaposition. On one hand, you have the vast, relentless machinery of war. We're talking Liberty passes expiring right at 3 p.m., military barracks, patriotic posters everywhere. That underlying anxiety of military service is just looming over everything they do. But contrasting that, right in the middle of it all, you have the hyper-specific, deeply comforting details of Emily and Lyle's everyday lives. A birthday dress, yellow roses, a roast chicken for dinner, and tomatoes growing out in the garden. Today, we're going to focus on how their two families basically build a fortress of normalcy out of those very specific, ordinary details. Section 2. The dress and the decision. So, picture this. It's a Thursday morning, and Lyle is out shopping for a gift. Now, here's the funny thing. Lyle has actually worked at Marston's department store for 12 years, but he very quickly discovers that a decade of retail experience utterly fails you when you're trying to buy a milestone birthday gift for your girlfriend. He is totally lost. Luckily, a brilliant salesgirl named Frances comes to the rescue and brings out 3 candidates. First, the pale rose. It's got pretty fabric, but it's just way too delicate for Emily's pragmatic, decisive personality. Then there's the blue-gray. It's clean, very practical for church, but then there's the warm ivory. It has these delicate small buttons and embroidered cuffs. Frances points out that Emily would just light up in this one. It's unshowy, elegant, and incredibly precise. So, Lyle buys the ivory dress, and the big gift is finally secured. Moving on to Section 3, Lyle's family on 30th Street. Now, what's really interesting here is how the families operate. To really get this story, we need to map out these familial orbits, the people who are actively grounding Emily and Lyle. Over on Hawthorne Street, you have Georgiana, Emily's widowed mother, who we are going to meet in just a moment. But first, over on 30th Street, we have Lyle's family. You've got Austin, his father, who is highly animated and very mechanically minded. There's Della, his mother, who is just the definition of warmth and hospitality. And then there's Abby, Lyle's grandmother, that's Della's mother, who is incredibly sharp-witted. Let's take a closer look at this dynamic over on 30th Street. The atmosphere that Austin and Della create in their home is just incredibly bustling and comforting. You've got Austin animatedly pacing around discussing aviation engine modifications over at Rockwell Field. You've got Della constantly setting out fresh lemonade on the porch and serving up roast chicken from the backyard. For Della, her primary joy in life isn't about grand, sweeping military victories. Not at all. Her joy is simply having her son sitting safely at her table, healthy and happy, telling funny stories about his military exchange shifts. It's a house absolutely full of expansive warmth. And right in the middle of all this bustling energy is Abby. As we mentioned, she's Della's mother and Lyle's grandmother. She usually just sits quietly with her knitting, absorbing all the chatter around her. But make no mistake, she is a woman of intense, sharp observation. She has this ability to cut straight to the core of any subject with devastating accuracy. In fact, when the topic of Emily's unseen wrapped birthday dress comes up, Abby drops a piece of absolute wisdom on the room. Without even looking up from her knitting, she just says, "A good dress is worth more than a bad compliment. Buy the one that makes you stand up straight." I mean, how brilliant is that? It's exactly the kind of pragmatic generational wisdom that perfectly aligns with Emily's own sensible nature. With that one sentence, she completely validates Lyle's choice of the ivory dress, and she hasn't even seen it yet. Section 4. Georgiana and the gift. Let's move to Emily's orbit now and see how this builds, because Lyle has to go drop off the birthday box to hide it before the weekend. The contrast between these two households is really striking, and it perfectly illustrates the different kinds of support systems people built. Lyle's home on 30th Street is bustling. It's loud. It's full of casual laughter on the porch. Meanwhile, Hawthorne Street, Emily's home, is highly structured. It's quiet. It's formal. Over there, you don't get casual lemonade. You sit down for formal tea and gingerbread, and absolutely everything is measured. And the center of gravity over at Hawthorne Street is Georgiana, Emily's widowed mother. She is completely defined by her appraising directness. When Lyle brings the dress box over on Thursday evening to hide it until Sunday, she takes it from him with this very brisk, measured demeanor. She acts as a practical custodian. She literally checks the weight of the box in her hands, asks him if he managed to pick it out all by himself, and immediately assumes guardianship of it. It's her own fierce, highly protective version of love for her daughter. So, let's track the actual timeline of this weekend really quick. Thursday morning was the stressful shopping trip at Marston's. Thursday evening, Lyle handed the gift over to Georgiana for safekeeping. Which brings us right to the climax of our story. Sunday. Emily's actual 18th birthday, kicking off with church in the morning and ending with the grand unwrapping in the afternoon. Section 5. The Sunday celebration. This is where we really see how the family structure intentionally elevates a milestone day, creating this beautiful shield against all the chaos of 1917. It kicks off as a wonderfully proper Sunday. Lyle arrives with yellow roses, which Emily fondly notes are warm, cheerful, and slightly prickly, much like herself, actually. They attend a very grounding church service together, and then Lyle takes them all to the Grand U.S. Grant Hotel for lunch. And what's fascinating to watch is how Georgiana's measured approval validates the entire event. She approves of the white linen, she notes the proper silver, and she is particularly pleased that the hotel serves a proper cream of tomato soup. After this elegant, deliberate meal, they head back to Hawthorne Street to finally unwrap that ivory dress. When Emily finally takes the ivory dress out of the tissue paper, Georgiana steps right up and rubs the fabric between her fingers at the cuff. Now, keep in mind, she has seen a lot of clothing in her 50 years. Her final verdict? Good material. It will last. And honestly, this brilliantly illustrates Georgiana's entire worldview. That brief, highly practical assessment, that is her ultimate stamp of approval. It reflects her enduring, practical approach to both life and love. If it's built well, it will survive. And that brings us to Section 6, the strength of family. So why does this all matter? Why look so closely at one specific birthday weekend? Because it reveals how these two families create an absolute shield of normalcy for these kids. For example, while they are having tea after the dress unwrapping, they start talking about Georgiana's garden, and she casually notes that she now has exactly 5 tomatoes growing. Not 4, but 5. A tiny new one came through that very morning. It's a hyper-specific, almost mundane fact, but against the vast, terrifying uncertainty of a global war, a growing tomato is a promise of tomorrow. It anchors them. But of course, the war hasn't gone anywhere. As the clock ticks toward 3 p.m., Lyle has to check his watch. His Liberty Pass is expiring, and the goodbyes here are incredibly telling. Georgiana doesn't get overly emotional or weep. Instead, she offers him a firm handshake and simply tells him, "Come again Thursday week." That right there is her ultimate affirmation of his solid place in their family. Then Emily walks him out to the path in the golden afternoon light. There's a final turn, a raised hand in farewell, and Lyle heads back to the reality of the barracks. Late that night, back at the base, Lyle writes Emily a letter, and he says this: "You turned 18 today, and I wasn't there for most of it, which is the great unfairness of military life. But I was there for the part that mattered, the dress and the roses and the soup at the U.S. Grant and the tea in your mother's kitchen afterward." He realizes it perfectly. It wasn't the grandeur of the times that mattered at all. It was the quiet, supportive family moments. That was the true gift of the weekend. Which leaves us with this thought to carry away today. What is the unsung value of ordinary family moments during extraordinary times? When the world outside your door is unpredictable, chaotic, or just plain scary, perhaps it's the 5 tomatoes in the garden, the cream of tomato soup, and the sharp wisdom of our grandmothers that truly keep us standing up straight. Take a moment today to think about the everyday orbits that anchor you. Thank you so much for joining us for this explainer, and we will see you next time.